I hate saying this continually because it sounds like I'm just trying to avoid conflict, but I wouldn't be mad with any of these guys.
I
And
know.
I think just like if I was up here picking, I'd select Cody Williams. But at the end of the day, here we go. I wouldn't be upset.
Wow. Rob with the shifts.
Wow.
Wow. Remember when we talked about this with Lou and we just kind of didn't think it was going to happen? Wow. The suits, bro. The suits told from the beginning. This is
Dude.
okay. Let me give my thoughts here, Ethan, before we get an interview, because I had this thought today, and I was talking with a good friend of the show, Drew King, about this. And here he is. He says, "Shifty," and he's
Mm,
someone who has seen him be shifty in person multiple times. Um, Rob is a 6-man. Think about him in that light. 6-man scoring plug, ignite. You know, just ignite off the. I don't want to make this comparison, Ethan, but let me make it. I'm not saying this, but I think you'll get where I'm coming from.
mhm.
Has a lot of erraticness, makes crazy shots, does some crazy stuff.
Mm.
Manu did that. Not the frame that Manu is. Obviously, we've talked about his defense at nauseum, but in the sense that he can just come in and make a bunch of crazy, exciting, high energy plays.
100%. Uh, I see that 1,000% because Stefan's going to start. That's without question. Stefan's going to start.
Dude, Rob, this is crazy. Go ahead. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're fine. Elite shooter, and that's the second biggest need for the Spurs, right? It's defense and then shooting, and then playmaking. He provides those two other needs: playmaking and shooting. And if he's able to develop that pick and roll play, if his size is not a question, we talk about smaller guards that aren't great at defense still having a lot of great play in the league. I think of Jalen Brunson. I think of Darius Garland, Trey Young. None of these guys are great defenders, but they're still able to contribute to their teams at an all-star level. So if that's where he's able to eventually reach, then we're excited about him at 8. If his ceiling is going to be something similar to what Jordan Clarkson, a 6-man of the year candidate that, like you said, is just elite shooter off the bench, totally fine with that as well because we also have Stefan Castle at the 4th pick.
I completely agree with everything you just said, but this comment here from D'Lo is scaring me a little bit, which I wouldn't be completely opposed to. But did we just trade him to Minnesota?
I'm checking Twitter.
They're talking about it right now.
Yes, they have.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, then who are
So
we getting back?
we were just picking somebody for somebody else there. So the trade
Whoa.
rumors were true. I didn't mean to cut off what you were saying there, Ethan. I just saw that comment and I was like, no way. But I mean, because what I was about to ask, if I wouldn't have saw that comment, I was going to be like, is this the original scenario at the end of the day? Like, do we just end up, maybe playing Rob at the 1 and then playing Stefan at the
True, true, true,
at
true.
the wing? I mean, but I would have been cool with the other thing that we were talking about too, because you wouldn't know about the possibilities. And when I say that, all of his family's got the Spurs stuff on. Where did you see it?
Woj
Okay, well that's obviously true. They probably just don't know yet. Rob's about to be so
and Shams.
disappointed. He's about to be so disappointed, to be honest.
Oh, I feel bad
Well,
now.
actually, no. He's going to a good team. He's going to
Yeah,
a
he's
good
going to
team.
a great team.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Him and Ant next to each other is really cool.
What the? The Timberwolves are trading a 2031 unprotected first and a protected 2030 pick swap for Dillingham.
Are we loading up to what?
Yeah,
Are
that's
we loading up to make a bigger move?
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Because that's two. Like, why do we need 2 picks from the 2030s? I mean, I guess Minnesota won't be as good there, but like, I feel like we could have gotten something better for that. Am I crazy?
I am not sure. I mean, by that point, Minnesota should be bad again, right? If we're just going by the law of
Right.
averages. But I mean, it is unprotected. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, well, I guess if we're trading all these picks, this is the deal that we liked the most. So maybe it was the best thing. I just feel like we could have gotten a little bit more value there, but I think we probably have had this for a little bit because I don't think Minnesota. Let me see when Minnesota picks if they even do in the first round. Wow.
The only thing I can think of is we are literally gathering assets for an eventual trade. The question is this sooner than we expected? Or is this just we're planning for next year?
Yeah, and I already saw Woj. He ruined this pick for me, but Zach
Yeah,
Edey at
I
number
saw that
9
too.
to Memphis. Honestly, as much as I've given Zach Edey a bunch of I've kind of like shoot away talk with him because I would prefer Donovan Clingan. The Grizzlies are trying to go back to getting somebody like a Steven Adams so they can play Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 4 and kind of go back to what gave them success in the first place.
Mhm.
So I can see that there. I still wonder about him a little bit, but I see the vision that Memphis is going with here. But enough about that, Ethan, is before we finish up, we'll kind of wrap up this talk with Stephon Castle and this trade for Rob Dillingham. But we were talking about Minnesota. I was looking them up for something. Well, I guess is well, no, Mike Conley's a starter. Who is their point guard off the bench? I should know this. I watched the whole playoff
Yeah, I
series.
watched the whole series too. I don't remember.
I remember Nikhil Alexander Walker, obviously, Monte Morris, and he's going to be gone. So actually, I can see why they would want Rob Dillingham and to have a a spark plug off the bench, just in the sense that we just talked about him. So I see his fit on Mini there for sure, and I think that's honestly a good trade for them.
It
Um,
is, I think so too. Because how long is Mike Conley gonna last too?
right, exactly. I mean, and I don't even know how many years he has on his contract left, but I know that Monte Morris is a free agent, which means they need and Monte Morris didn't even play that much in that series. Um,
Mhm.
But yeah, they've definitely got their backup point guard.
There is the whole situation too we haven't really talked about is we just didn't really have room for everybody. So maybe we're just trying to avoid having to cut somebody because we believe in them too much. Um,
A spot is open for Dominic Barlow, Ethan.
Bring him in for training camp. Bring him in for training camp.
Oh my gosh. No, okay, but in all seriousness though, that actually is a really good point. Keep it, especially if we're going to sign somebody.
True. Hey, you know what? It'll all be worth it once we see what we actually use these picks for, because it's either going to be a big trade
You're right.
or Minnesota sucks and we have like a number 3 pick in 2030 and we draft Jude McLaren Jr.
Wow. I mean, the thing is, they're going to be unprotected when they're not going to be the same team that they are right now. Like Rudy Gobert
Exactly.
on then, well, okay, actually the 2030 swap is top 1 protected, but still, even then, like that's the least protection that can be on a pick. But Ethan, okay, I don't want to go too off topic here, but we'll just say one more thing about the draft in general. Matas Buzelis is falling. This next
Yes, he
pick,
is.
I also got that ruined for me, and I'm not going to say who it is for anybody watching, but it is not Matas Buzelis. So that's very interesting. But Ethan, um, what is your final thoughts on this draft as we wrap up the stream?
A little surprising when we got to 8. I think it's exactly what we expected, and I'm very, very pleased with what we did at 4, bringing in Stephon Castle, elite defense, versatile player, the future point guard for the team. Obviously, we just traded the 8th pick for a pick swap in 2030 and an unprotected 2031 first from Minnesota. Uh, Initial shock probably needs a day or two to sink in and really get an idea of what the Spurs are going to do here. But I envision a trade is coming, another one, a bigger trade. That's why we're trying to collect these assets. And maybe the Spurs know something that we just aren't privy to because that's the kind of franchise we are. We just try and keep everything, keep our cards close to the chest. But I can't lie and say that I would have been very pleased to have 2 guys coming in,
Yeah,
2 rookies. Like that was what I was looking forward to, because as Cody Williams goes 10 to Utah. Um, but we'll have to wait and see what the grander plan was here from, the Spurs front office.
yeah, that's completely true, Ethan. And really, with this move, you know who it reminds me of, Ethan? Take a guess. It's a
CDC Joe?
GM. It's a
Oh,
GM.
it's GM.
It's one that we talk about all the time.
Sam Presti.
Yes. This is a Sam Presti type move.
It really is just collecting assets.
And then think about like the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander trade.
Mm-hmm.
I know that was very different because they were trading Paul George, but this is a Sam Presti-esque move. And if we want to just use all of these picks to go make a big move, that makes sense. And this could be a thing where they just feel good about Stephon Castle, getting him in the first round for this year. And like you said, it may not even be like a this year thing, but we're setting this up, for the future to eventually do this.
Right. And if you're gonna trade a lottery pick, I guess this is the draft to do it. Right, because it's not exactly the strongest. Like we weren't about to get like a guaranteed all-star guy. Right. We were either gonna get a project player in Cody Williams, or we were gonna get a potential really good six man with maybe a higher ceiling in Rob Dillingham. So
Yeah, and as Tavat Plunderer
here we go.
says, 2 first-round picks for a weak draft is a steal. That's a good point because if we're sitting here in 2030 and 2031 and they're talking about, all these potential, big stars, or it's just, much better than, like this draft, I can see that too. We did get 2 first-round picks for one. So that is, there's some good there at the end of the day. But Stephon, I mean, as much as I would have liked to see Rob on the Spurs, I also think that we already have Trey Jones too. So where was he really going to find playing time? Were we going to play him at the 2? Were we going to move Trey? You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
roster wise, this actually, this clears things up a little bit more. Unless you wanted to say that Blake Wesley, is kind of muddled up in those point guards. But we've talked about how we kind of feel like he might be transitioning to the 2. And I feel like this pick and the way that this is all played out kind of signals that.
Agreed. I have nothing to add.
All right, Ethan. Well, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up this stream?
Go Spurs, go.
That is exactly how I feel as well. As much as this was interesting and we kind of got really excited there with the Rob pick to find out it wasn't the case, I still think overall, Ethan, this is a very solid draft for the Spurs, especially getting Stephon Castle. I'm very excited to have him in San Antonio. Love the suit. Love the defense he's going to be playing. Love the work he's going to be putting in the gym, putting up shots, trying to improve that jumper, Ethan. But most importantly, the defensive versatility of the Spurs, Ethan, is looking very good. And the other thing I'll say, we almost mentioned this earlier. I brought it up in the comments. Not having another draft pick does open up minutes for CD Sissoko.
Yes, it does. I almost forgot about our other French prospect that is just sitting on the bench right now. Maybe he'll get some meaningful time.
We shall see, Ethan.